Hello and welcome to GearHeads. My name is Jesse and today we're going to be going over how to do spark plugs on the Ford 3-valve engines. It's a really common known problem that some of the earlier ones like to spit them out, and then they went to the 2-piece spark plug design, and a lot of those like to break when you uninstall them. So there is a tool for that. I have it right here, and it is the Lyle Tool Kit number 65600. So if we do have any issues, I have that and I'll show you guys how to use it. But even if I do this successfully without breaking any of them, it's still good to know that they have this kit available and there is an instruction set in here. It's not too hard to figure out. In any case, just a couple tips and tricks, whether you've done spark plugs on other cars before or whether you don't even know what a spark plug looks like. These ones tend to be they tend to scare people a little bit just because they have the reputation for breaking. For some reason, Ford decided to use a 2-piece spark plug. So what happens is you put your socket wrench on there with your spark plug socket and you start going to loosen it and it's real tight, and then you break it loose. And sometimes it'll even feel like it spins a little bit, or sometimes you'll just realize right away that, the whole thing's loose, and you pull it out and it looks like you have half a spark plug, because you do, and the other half is still down there screwed into the head. So in any case, you have options as far as replacements go, and you're looking to replace your spark plugs. You can get the Ford factory ones, you can get auto lights, or you can get champions. The auto lights pretty much are the OEM parts. They make them for Motorcraft. So you might be able to get those cheaper if you went auto light from Napa or something versus going to the dealer. It probably just depends on what the prices are in your area. I decided to try out the Champion ones. They're an improved design. They say it's a 1-piece. I think it's still 2 pieces. It's just stronger. But in any case, I'm going to give them a shot. And if the car runs great with them, then cool. I don't have any complaints. If it doesn't run quite as well, then I'll probably return them and just go back to using the auto lights. In any case, let's go ahead and go get started. This is my wife's car, so hopefully it all goes smoothly and I can drive it home tonight, because otherwise, I don't know what I'm going to drive home. Alright, so before we get started, I just want to give you guys a quick list of all the stuff that I'm going to be using to do this. So like I said, whether you've done spark plugs before or not, I'm just going to go through this and show you on the first plug up here, and then I'm going to go through and do the rest of them, but you don't need to see how, because they're all exactly the same, whether you're doing it on a Mustang like this or whether you're doing it on one of the pickup trucks. So you're going to want to have a 7mm socket and ratchet. I've got my electric ratchet, and you want to use that to pull out your ignition coils. You're going to want a 1/2-inch air gun, a powerful one, the best you can get. If you don't own one, maybe try and borrow one from a friend or something, and you're going to want to at least have a decent compressor to back that up as well. So those are the 2 main things. You're going to want an air sprayer. That's about it. You're going to want to have some anti-seize, and you need a torque wrench, because when you install these, it's actually very important. A lot of spark plugs, you can really do a good job getting it by feel if you have a lot of experience. But these ones are really picky, and if you don't get the torque just right, even if you don't have a problem with them sticking or something later down the road, I've seen multiple cases where after several months even, or some time driving, the spark plug will somehow work itself a little bit loose and start making a ticking noise, and it sounds like maybe you have a problem with your valve train, or maybe you have an exhaust leak, and it turns out all along all it was a loose spark plug. So definitely have a torque wrench. And anyways, let's just go through the process and you will see all of those tools in action. One more thing that's actually really important that I forgot to say in the very beginning of the video. Before you get started on any of this, go drive your car. Get the engine nice and warm. The spark plugs tend to come out a lot easier actually when the engine's hot. So do that if you want to. Another method is to get it nice and hot, spray some penetrating oil down in the hole and let it soak for a bit after you've pulled out your ignition coils. Some people like to do that and let it sit for a night. Personally, I'd rather just get the engine hot. If I am going to use penetrating oil, spray it, maybe let it sit for 5 or 10 minutes, and then just go to work and hope, hope for the best. Anyways, let's go ahead and get started. So we're on the driver's side here, and before I get started with anything, I'm going to just take this air hose with the sprayer and just try and get as much dirt and grime and stuff out of here as I can before I start any work. That was pretty dirty, but we live on a dirt road, so it's kind of to be expected. Now, just for you guys, let me see if I can just go ahead and I'm going to pop this loose and get this out of the way so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to go ahead and unplug each ignition coil. So just push down on the tab. Sometimes if it's really tight, it actually might help to push the connector down towards the coil and then push the button and pull on it, and it'll come off real easy like that. I'm gonna do you don't have to do the fuel injectors, but I'm gonna do it too just so I can get the wiring harness a little bit further out of the way for the video. All right, now that I've got things cleaned up a little bit, we got that out of the way, let's go ahead and take out the first ignition coil, 7mm. Nothing wrong with using a hand ratchet if that's all you got, but I'm impatient and I have one, so I'm gonna use it. All right, so took out the first ignition coil. Already I can see there's more dirt and crud down there that I'm gonna wanna blow out, but another note to make, sometimes these things will stick on pretty good. If they're sticking and you're pulling it out and it tears this boot, sometimes it'll leave pieces down there. Make sure you get them out. You might need some long pliers to reach it and yank it, but you know, do what you can to figure that out if that happens. And you can buy these boots pretty much anywhere at any part store. If you pull one out, even if it comes out easy, if you notice any cracks in it or any other weird markings on it and it looks like it's leaking, then just replace it. It'll cause misfires because it'll short the spark through, you know, past the rubber to the head instead of making it all the way down to the spark plug. So just check these out when you pull it apart. Always a good thing to keep an eye on. All right, let's go ahead and blow that hole out again. So now's the time to go ahead and grab your 1/2-inch gun. As far as the theory for why this works better, because you'd kind of think, oh, wouldn't that immediate amount of shock actually just break the thing right off? You know, you might think that, but at least in my experience and other techs that I've talked to, it seems that hitting it with that instant amount of torque seems to just break it loose and help it come right out, versus it also doesn't give any side loading to it, versus if you put a ratchet on there by hand and go to break it loose, you're kind of giving it more time and more of a chance. But I don't know, that's just the theory, I guess. But here we go. Let's see if the first one, at least, if we're lucky. Looks like I got lucky, I think. Yep. I don't have the 9/16 specific spark plug socket for this, which I don't know why, I'm a dummy. I should have bought one by now. I just keep forgetting to. But if you use a normal 9/16 socket and have a magnet, you can just pull it right out like that. So look at the end of this spark plug here, and you can see that, you know, it's getting all rusty right around here. That is exactly what causes them to stick, and then they break off right here where you see this seam, right, like about 2 or 3 millimeters after the end of the threads. It'll break off and just leave this whole section down there while you get the whole top half out. In any case, looking at these actually look like, yeah, they look like they might be the original plugs. I'm not sure. They're Motorcrafts, but this was the older design. The newer ones, actually, you can see more of the electrode. I'll show you before I put the new spark plug in. Well, this Champion one, like I said, I actually haven't tried these ones yet, but these are actually very different. The whole tip is completely different than the original ones were. I mean, you can tell, look at how big that gap is, though. These spark plugs definitely needed to be done. But yeah, when you get the Autolite plugs, they look more like this, but what you'll notice, the Autolites or the Motorcraft, this shielded part here actually comes down a little further, and the ground strap is a little bit longer, and you can see more of the porcelain. But in any case, that's just a side note. But so before we go and install this new one in, what we're going to want to do is use some nickel anti-seize and put a little bit all around this area here. Stop before you get to the top. You don't want to get any, you know, on the ground strap itself, or you don't want to get any up in this area, but right along here is where they tend to stick. So, and then maybe just a tiny bit on the threads. Ford actually recommends not putting any. I don't believe them, so I use just a little bit of anti-seize and then torque it when you put it into place. So in any case, let's go ahead and put some anti-seize on this one and install it. Before I put that new spark plug in, I'm going to go ahead and blow this out again. Let's see if we get any rust out of there. Not really, actually. That was remarkably clean. Cool. All right, now before we put that new spark plug in there, just go ahead and take a look. I put just a little bit of the nickel anti-seize right here at the tip of the threads. I got a little bit right there too, but not very much. It'll kind of work itself in. You don't want too much. And then I went ahead and rubbed this on with my finger just around. Just like I said, be careful. You don't want it all the way at the top. And if you were smarter than me and thought ahead and bought the specialty socket, then you can go ahead and plop that baby in right now and install it. But I'm a dingbat, so I need to use my magnet to install it. Like this. You know, just because you don't really want to get it in there and drop it. So anyway, there we go. Now it's in place, I can go ahead and just put it in with my hands the rest of the way. I actually just realized these Champion ones that I got to replace the old Motorcraft ones with are actually a 5/8. So I can use a 5/8 spark plug socket to install them, which is kind of nice. So just install them all the way with my fingers until it snugs down, and then we'll get my torque wrench. All right, now I got my torque wrench. Now you're supposed to set these to 13 foot-pounds. So that is what I am going to do. There you go, that's it. 13.7 according to my torque wrench, so that'll be close enough. But it's really not that tight, so just keep in mind, if you don't have a torque wrench, go buy one. If you're working on your own car, it's a good investment and you're going to use it. Next step, before you reinstall your ignition coil, go ahead and put some dielectric grease right in the tip of this thing where it's going to be wrapping itself around the spark plug. Alternatively, you can also put some on the spark plug itself before you install it, which I have found helpful in the past because I've had times where you put the spark plug socket on and you go to tighten the thing down, and then the spark plug socket is stuck because you go and pull the extension back and it leaves the socket in there. If you put a little bit of grease on the spark plug before, that is not likely to happen. Luckily, these were already all greased up ahead of time, so I didn't need to worry about it. Now, as far as torquing down this little screw, more importantly, just make sure you use your fingers to get it started. I've seen a lot of people cross thread these things, and there's really no reason for that. And I'm not using a torque spec, so once again, if you're a torque Nazi, sue me. But truth is, it's a 6mm bolt, doesn't need to be very tight. Look, just grab the top of the ratchet right at the head and just a little twist to check that it's snug and you're good to go. It literally does not need to be very tight. So don't break them and don't cross thread them. Now, that's pretty much it. That's that one installed. You know, if all you did was unplugged your coil, then you should be good to go. Oh, look at that little piece just fell back down there. That's where all those chunks came from. Anyways, a couple extra tips. Like I said, I took the wiring and stuff out of the way just to give myself more room to work and so I could show you guys on the video without having it being in the way. Some of these do actually have little clips on the harness that you have to pull back out of the way, like a little lock. I'll show you actually right over here on the MAF sensor. There's one that's very similar, just in case the truck or car you're working on has those, because some of them do. So just as an example, if yours has these clips on it, just take a little tiny screwdriver or a little flathead or whatever, just pull that back, and then you gotta just push the button and pull. And this one is of course going to be tight. Like I said before, if you push forward on it and then push to release, that helps. Oh, come on. Of course, now that I'm showing on the video, it doesn't want to pop off nicely. There it goes. So in any case, that's it. Now when you go back to reinstall them, same thing. Just go ahead and push down, make sure it's seated all the way, and then push down the lock. If you cannot push the lock down, then you have a problem, and that means that it's not actually going to stick. So take it back off, try again. Sometimes you get dust and stuff in the connectors, and I know I'm pointing at the MAF right now, but the same thing applies to the pigtails for your fuel injectors and for your ignition coils. It's never a bad idea if you want to put a little bit of lube or dielectric grease in these as well, so that you can take it apart easier again later. And like I said, it keeps dusting and other moisture from getting in there, and that's kind of the reason they get sticky and hard to pull apart in the first place. So just a tip. Now doing all the rest of them will be the exact same process, so I'm going to go ahead and just bang them all out. If I end up getting unlucky and get a broken one, then I'll go through that whole process and let you know. So if I get unlucky, I guess that means you get lucky. That's a sick, twisted relationship, but oh, whatever. Either way, here goes. Alright, so that is how you get spark plugs out of a 3-valve Ford motor, the 2-piece spark plug specifically. So luckily I got all of them out, none of them broke, and they all came out on the first try. You know, I have the tool, so if I need it, you know, for somebody else's car or something, at least I have it. But I'm just grateful I get to drive this thing home soon. I got just a couple other things to button up on here and I can head out. But a couple things I didn't mention earlier in the video. For example, the spark plugs on these, usually you don't gap them because they, the ground strap on the plug goes over. There's no adjustment or anything of the sort to be made. These Champion ones actually can be gapped, but you know, they send them to you pre-gapped, so just at least check them. These are at 0.045, which is right where they should be, so awesome. Just put them in, and I haven't started it yet, but I'm sure I won't have any issues. They should be good to go. If for some reason I do have any issues, I will be sure to report back to you guys and tell you, so you can stick with the Motorcraft or the auto lights. But hopefully these ones work out all right, and since they're at least a one-piece design, I don't need to be as worried about it if I need to do them again in the future. So in any case, thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any comments or you have any questions, just feel free to drop them down below. I'm always happy to try and help you guys out if I can. Yeah, if you have any other comments or other things that I may have missed, look down in the comments, because sometimes people add notes or things I forgot to say. A lot of times when you're talking in the video, it's really easy just to skip or pass over something and forget that maybe you guys don't know that and needed to be told. So in any case, thank you again for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, keep wrenching. And for you armchair quarterbacks out there, yeah, I know I used my 1/2-inch gun with, you know, chrome socket and extension. Sue me.